In written languages, an ordinal indicator is a character, or group of characters, following a numeral denoting that it is an ordinal number, rather than a cardinal number. In English orthography, this corresponds to the suffixes st, nd, rd, th in written ordinals. Also commonly encountered are the superscript ordinal indicators a and o, originally from Romance, but via the cultural influence of Italian by the 18th century widely used in the wider cultural sphere of Western Europe, as in una primo and una prima first, chief. Prime quality. The practice of underlined superscripted abbreviations was common in 19th century writing, and was also found in handwritten English until at least the late 19th century. Superscript o and a, in Italian, Spanish and Portuguese, the suffixes o and a are appended to the numeral depending on whether the grammatical gender is masculine or feminine respectively. As with English and French orthographical tradition, the suffixes are traditionally superscripted. In addition, they are often underlined too, as in una primo, una prima. Origins equals, the practice of indicating ordinals with superscript suffixes may originate with the practice of writing a superscript o to indicate a Latin ablative in pre-modern scribal practice. This ablative dissonance happened to be frequently combined with ordinal numerals indicating dates on the third day, or in years of the Dionysian era, as in Anno Millensimo. Ab incarnation Domini Nostri Iesu Christi in the 1000th year after the incarnation of our Lord Jesus Christ. The usage of terminals in the vernacular languages of Europe derives from Latin usage, as practiced by scribes in monasteries and chancelleries before writing in the vernacular became established. The terminal letters used depend on the gender of the item to be ordered in the case in which the ordinal adjective is stated, for example primus dies, but primo die, shown as io or io. As monumental inscriptions often refer to days on which events happened, for example he died on the 10th of June, the ablative case is generally used, so would the month stated in the genitive case. Examples: io di Juliae, on the first day of July, xodecimo, xxo vicensimo, lo quinquagensimo, company centesimo, mo millesimo. Usage equals, English and Italian, Portuguese and Spanish, the suffixes a and a are appended to the numeral depending on whether the grammatical gender is masculine or feminine respectively. As with French, these signs are preferably superscripted but, in contrast, they are often underlined as well. For example, in Italian, primo uno and primo una, secondo tuo and secondo tua, terzo trio and terzo trio euro, and also the abbreviation no for numero. Some character sets provide characters specifically for use as ordinal indicators in these languages, a and a. The masculine ordinal indicator U plus OOBA is often confused with the degree sign U plus OOBO, which looks very similar in many fonts and is available on Italian and Spanish keyboard layouts. The degree sign is a uniform circle and is never underlined, while the letter O may be oval or elliptical and have a varying line thickness. The letter O may also be underlined. In Spanish, using the two final letters of the word as it is spelled is not allowed, except in the cases of prima before singular masculine nouns, which is not abbreviated as one O but as one of terza before singular masculine nouns, which is not abbreviated as 3O but as 3 and of compound ordinal numbers ending in prima, or terza. For instance, 21st is Vega copyright Simo prima before a masculine noun, and its abbreviation is 21 Since none of these words should be shortened before feminine nouns, their correct forms for those cases are primera and tercera. These can be represented as 1A and 3A. As with other abbreviations in Spanish, the ordinal numbers have a period dot, which is placed before the superscript letter, s. Also in Portuguese, as with other abbreviations, the ordinal numbers have a period dot, which is placed before the ordinal indicator, s. Encoding equals, the Romance feminine and masculine ordinal indicators were adopted into the 8-bit ISO 8859-1 encoding in 1985, at positions 170 and 186, respectively. ISO 8859-1 was incorporated as the first 256 code points of ISO IEC 10646 and Unicode in 1991. The Unicode characters are thus, U+00AA a feminine ordinal indicator, U+00BA a masculine ordinal indicator. The named HTML entities A and A were introduced in HTML 3.2. The majority of character sets intended to support Galician, Portuguese and/or Spanish have those two characters encoded. In detail. Keyboard IBM PC, Windows and Apple keyboards designed for Galician, Portuguese and Spanish have those characters directly accessible through a dedicated key. Although that key is not located in the same place in the Portuguese keyboard and the Spanish keyboard, they use a similar method to access those characters, a simple keystroke of a to get a euro or a euro and a section shift, a to get a euro or a euro. In the Brazilian Portuguese keyboard, a euro or a euro and a euro or a euro can be obtained by pressing Alt-GR, and Alt-GR, respectively. In Windows keyboards, optionally, a euro or a euro can be obtained by pressing Alt, 0, 1, 7, 0 and a euro or a euro can be obtained by pressing Alt, 0, 1, 8, 6. In Apple keyboards, optionally, a euro or a euro can be obtained by pressing Alt, 0 and a euro or a euro can be obtained by pressing Alt, 9. In Linux, a euro or a euro can be obtained by pressing Alt-GR, a section shift, M and a euro or a euro can be obtained by pressing Alt-GR, a section shift, F. Similar conventions Some languages use superior letters as a typographic convention for abbreviations that aren't related to ordinal numbers. The letters O and A may be among those used, but they do not indicate ordinals. Spanish uses the indicator letters in some abbreviations, such as VA for visto bueno, NA for número, number, and MA for Maria, a Spanish name frequently used in compounds like Jose copyright MA. In Portuguese, the underlined A and A are used with many abbreviations, and should be succeeded by a period. In fact, there is no limit for which words may be abbreviated this way. Sometimes, other letters are also written before the A, or A. For example, Exmo for Excelentissimo, SRA for Senhora, etc. English has borrowed the No abbreviation from the Romance languages word numero. Similar forms exist as the word for number is derived in other Romance languages, numero in Italian, numa copyright ru in French, and numero in Spanish and Portuguese, applying it as an abbreviation for the English word number. This is sometimes written as NA, with the superscript O optionally underlined. See numero sign. Use of the ordinal indicating Unicode characters for these kinds of abbreviations is a matter of preference, but can be misleading. The A in NA, for example, is not intended to indicate ordinality at all. Other suffixes English equals. ST is used with numbers ending in 1, and D is used with numbers ending in 2, RD is used with numbers ending in 3, as an exception to the above rules. All Latin numbers ending with 11, 12 or 13 use th. Th is used for all other numbers. In 19th century handwriting, these terminals were often elevated, that is to say written as superscripts. With the gradual introduction of the typewriter in the late 19th century, it became common to write them on the line in typewritten texts, and this usage even became recommended in certain 20th century style guides. Thus, the 16th edition of the Chicago Manual of Style states, the letters in ordinal numbers should not appear as superscripts, as do the Blue Book and style guides by the Council of Science Editors, Microsoft, and Yahoo. Two problems are that superscripts are used most often in citations, and are tiny and hard to read. Some word processors format ordinal indicators as superscripts by default. Style guide author Jack Lynch recommends turning off automatic superscripting of ordinals in Microsoft Word, because no professionally printed books use superscripts. French uses the ordinal indicators A, re in feminine, E. French also uses the indicator D for the variant 2 da euro second. In feminine this indicator becomes de, 2d a eurosecond. In plural, all these indicators take a s, as, res, is, ds, des. These indicators use superscript formatting whenever it is available. Equals other languages equals. Catalan, the rule in Catalan is to follow the number with the last letter in the singular and the last two letters in the plural. Most numbers follow the pattern exemplified by Vint 20, but the first few ordinals are irregular, affecting the abbreviations of the masculine forms. Superscripting is not standard. Dutch, unlike other Germanic languages, Dutch is similar to English in this respect. The French layout with e used to be popular, but the recent spelling changes now prescribe the suffix a euro-e. Optionally a euro-ste and a euro-de may be used, but this is more complex, 1 ste, 2 de, 4 de, 20 sti euro. Finnish. In Finnish orthography, when the numeral is followed by its head noun, it is sufficient to write a period or full stop after the numeral. Parkurrency dian kilpailussa tu shijal in the competition, I finished in second place. However, if the head noun is omitted, the ordinal indicator takes the form of a morphological suffix, which is attached to the numeral with a colon. In the nominative case, the suffix is a euro-nen for 1 and 2, and a euro-s for larger numerals, minor currency olin 2, nen, jar velgen ioli 3, s I came second, and my brother came third. This is derived from the endings of the spelled-out ordinal numbers, ensima currency-nen, toinen, kolmas, niljar currency s, viides, cudes, sitsema currencies are euro. The system becomes rather complicated when the ordinal needs to be inflected, as the ordinal suffix is adjusted according to the case ending, 3s, 3, nnen, 3, tta, 3, nnessa, 3, nten, etc. Even native speakers sometimes find it difficult to exactly identify the ordinal suffix, as its borders with the word stem and the case ending may appear blurred. In such cases it may be preferable to write the ordinal word entirely with letters, and particularly 2, nen is rare even in the nominative case, as it is not significantly shorter than the full word toinen. Irish, numerals from 3 up form their ordinals uniformly by adding the suffix a, 3a, 4a, 5a, etc. When the ordinal is written out, the suffix adheres to the spelling restrictions imposed by the broad slender difference in consonants and is written ear after slender consonants. But when written as numbers, only the suffix itself is written. In the case of 4, the final syllable is syncopated before the suffix, and in the case of 9, 20, and 1000, the final vowel is assimilated into the suffix. Most multiples of 10 end in a vowel in their cardinal form and form their ordinal form by adding the suffix to their genitive singular form, which ends in d. This is not reflected in writing. Exceptions are 20 and 40, both of whom form their ordinals by adding the suffix directly to the cardinal. When counting objects, da cubed becomes da and cether becomes ceta. As in French, the vigesimal system is widely used, particularly in people's ages. Ceta scar cubed or agas car igda copyright aga euro 95. The numbers 1 and 2 both have 2 separate ordinals, one regularly formed by adding a, and one suppletive form. The regular forms are restricted in their usage to actual numeric contexts, when counting. The latter are also used in counting, especially car copyright ad, but are used in broader, more abstract senses of first and second. In their broader senses, car copyright ad and dara are not written as 1a and 2a, though 1a and 2a may in a numeric context be read aloud as car copyright ad and dara. Russian. 1 or 2 letters of the spelled-out numeral are appended to it. The rule is to take the minimal number of letters that include at least one consonant phoneme. Examples: 2th 1/4 n florin th squared n th 3/4 n euro th 3/4 th 1/4 n florin, 2n th squared n th 3/4 n euro th degree n, 2th to the first th squared n th 3/4 n euro th 3/4 th to the first is consonant. Swedish. The general rule is that a or e is appended to the numeral. The reason is that a and e respectively end the ordinal number words. The ordinals for first and second may however be given an E form when used about a male person, and if so they are written 1, E and 2, E. When indicating dates, suffixes are never used. Examples: 1 a class, 3, Eutgen van, but November 6th. Furthermore, suffixes can be left out if the number obviously is an ordinal number. Example: 3 UTG using a full stop as an ordinal indicator is considered archaic, but still occurs in military contexts. Example: 5 Kimp. Representation as period, in Basque, Bosnian/Croatian/Serbian, Czech, Danish, Estonian, Faroese, German, Hungarian, Icelandic, Latvian, Norwegian, Polish, Slovak, Slovene, Turkish, among other languages. A period or full stop is written after the numeral. The same usage, apparently borrowed from German, is now a standard in Polish, where it replaced the superscript to the last phoneme. Representation as prefix: numbers in Malay and Indonesian are preceded by the ordinal prefix k. For example, K7, seventh. The exception is pertama, which means first. Numbers in Filipino are preceded by the ordinal prefix ika or pang, the latter subject to sandhi. For example, ika-7 or pam-7, seventh. The exception is una, which means first. In Chinese an ordinal number is prefixed by si-da, for example ca first, caa second. See also, numerosine, superior letter, superscripts and subscripts. References. External links: Number words, Woodler cubed st.